From the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's Center for Agricultural Profitability, this is Nebraska Farmcast. I'm Ryan Evans. Strategic planning can usually be beneficial to any business, and farm and ranch operations are no exception. Coming up with clear missions, visions, and goals for the business can provide a roadmap to achieve a farm's objectives and get everyone on the same page. But are farmers and ranchers taking the time for strategic planning? Jay Parsons, a professor and farm and ranch management specialist in the University of Nebraska-Lincoln's Department of Agricultural Economics, looks at this topic in a new article posted on our Center for Ag Profitability's website at cap.unl.edu, and he's here now to discuss the importance of strategic planning and some barriers to the process that farmers and ranchers should seek to overcome for a healthier business. Hi, Jay. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me on, Ryan.
So you open up your new article by suggesting that strategic planning is a key characteristic of a good farm manager. Why should farm and ranch managers prioritize strategic planning, and then what are some challenges they might face in doing so?
Well, you hit it on your introduction there quite a bit with the clear understanding of their vision and their goals and their objectives. So that's the primary outcome from having a good strategic plan or engaging in strategic planning. It's getting a good idea where you want to head with your business and kind of a time scale for getting there. And then filling in some tactical things that you could do and some operational things that you could do to help facilitate that. So that's the primary benefit of it. The fact of the matter is, though, it does take quite a bit of time, and that's the primary barrier for producers to actually sitting down and completing a strategic plan. And then on top of that, there's all the uncertainty that we see in agriculture, particularly with the market. So it could be a little frustrating when you set out a plan, say, to grow your equity, and then you suffer through, a couple of years of downturns in markets where it's just not possible to do that. So those two factors really weigh on producers, and they say, well, is it really worth my time? Conditions are going to change. And then just the fact that it does take quite a bit of time to do it.
Yeah, and in the article, you cite several surveys that asked farmers about these management issues and then how they view strategic planning. So how did they assess some of the attributes that are associated with strategic planning in terms of their importance?
Well, surprisingly, a lot of this stuff hasn't been done in the U.S. as far as studying producers implementing strategic planning and whether or not they're doing it successfully. So at least the studies I was able to find were pretty much overseas or up in Canada. So Peter Nuthall out of New Zealand has done quite a bit of work looking at managerial abilities of ag producers and different aspects of that. And in his survey, he was asking producers to rank different attributes that they think are important for management. And surprisingly, having a clear vision of their missions and objectives and goals ranked kind of in the middle of the pack. It was about 6 on their list of 15, I think, that they ended up ranking. So it wasn't at the top, which is a little bit surprising. But things that were at the top were things that we expect to be there, like the ability to basically read the tea leaves, right? See where the markets are going, see what's happening out there and reacting accordingly were the type of things that made the top 5. So that was one of the studies that I looked at, a lot of stuff there in New Zealand, and then there was some out of UK. And there was a study there on just general small businesses, small family businesses in rural areas. And then one that they looked at the actual farmers themselves and things that they ranked up there. And it pretty much, comes down to goals and objectives, right? It's kind of the take-home point of things that they pointed out in there. Other things that you could do like SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats and stuff like that, kind of weigh in there a little bit. But a lot of producers don't get to that level of it. But they at least, I think in one of the studies there was 3/4, and the other one maybe 2/3 that actually said that they had a clear understanding of their goals and objectives. Surprisingly, well, maybe not surprisingly, very few actually had them written down. So that's more like 10 or 15%.
Yeah, it sounds like from those surveys that being maybe more reactive rather than proactive was ranked higher in terms of importance, probably, again, just because of the nature of the time it takes to do this sort of proactive planning. So are there other strategic planning tools that stick out? You mentioned like SWOT analysis and things, but are there other tools that stick out from surveys that you looked at for this article that farm managers use and how they're engaged with those?
Well, just general planning tools, right? So you think of crop farmers and crop rotations, where they're going to put their crops and what years and how those rotations might work. Same thing on the livestock side with grazing management plans and stuff like that. That we might think of more as traditional production planning tools. Those are also part of your strategic plan, right? Because a lot of times it has to do with basically machinery replacement decisions or machinery purchases, land management decisions, and so on. So all of those are part of an overall strategic plan. But then certainly cash flow projections and things like that, the financial side of it weighs in there too. For the most part, people, in ag are trying to build their financial position, so their equity position. So having good, financial statements produced on a regular basis and just kind of goals of different metrics that you're trying to reach each year is important.
If you were sitting down with a farmer and they were wondering about strategic planning and just didn't know where to start or what kinds of things should be included in the process, you just mentioned a number of those things, but what would your advice be to them maybe on just how to start the process and to demystify it a little bit?
Well, farmers and ranchers spend a lot of time producing, right? So sometimes they're on tractors, sometimes they're out on a horse or in a pickup or whatever. And they think about things that they want to accomplish on their operation virtually every day, several times a day. Just take some time to think about some timelines. What is it? How would I measure progress towards these things I want to accomplish? And then take some time to write some stuff down. Just you got to start someplace. So you never really know what the key metrics are until you start thinking them through, right? What is the right way to measure that I'm actually growing my business in the direction that I want it to go, reaching, if you're wanting the next generation to take over, what kind of planning goes into that in terms of getting those young folks involved in the operation and finding a place for them to operate and function and grow as a manager within the operation. Lots of different things like that you can think through on where you want your operation to be in 5, 10, 15 years, and then just lay out some things that you would use to measure that you're actually making progress. Doesn't have to be perfect. A lot of strategic plans, especially at ag, are just a couple of pages long, sometimes just a single page, right? These are the most important things, and this is what I'm going to measure on a regular basis, is a good start.
And we know that time, as we said, is often the biggest hurdle toward starting the strategic planning process. And maybe even people question its effectiveness, but is there evidence that you've seen or that's been studied about the true impact of strategic planning on a farm or ranch business?
Well, when I set out to write this article, I was hoping to find somebody that actually researched that and quantified it. And what I found is really nobody has quantified it in terms of its total impact on it, right? So there are some things that I'm working on where we're looking at satisfaction of decision makers, where they kind of self-assess themselves as far as being satisfied with their decision making. That kind of falls into this realm. Most of the stuff that I found on the farm and ag side really just looked at people's implementation of some different strategic planning tools and evidence that they're doing some strategic planning. There was a study, as I mentioned, in UK where they looked at small rural family businesses, not necessarily ag businesses. And that's the only one that had some real numbers. And they quantified basically a 60% increase in gross returns for those that had strong evidence of strategic planning as a part of their business. So that's pretty significant. I'd like to, find some numbers like that within the U.S., or in particular for agriculture. I'm just not aware of any right now that is out there that anybody's actually quantified it.
Well, as always, great information today from Jay Parsons, professor and farm and ranch management specialist in the Department of Agricultural Economics and with the Center for Ag Profitability here at UNL. You can find his new article on strategic planning for farmers and ranchers on our website. That's cap.unl.edu. Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Ryan.
Nebraska Farmcast is a production of the Center for Agricultural Profitability at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. For the latest research-based information and education resources to manage your farm or ranch operation, visit our website at cap.unl.edu. That's cap.unl.edu.